Right, so next thing we need to do is start bringing everything together. We need to fracture up these bits of metal so that they can actually bend, and then start bringing everything together, build some constraints between them. I'm just going to go backtrack a little here and head up towards this blast here, because I want to delete. I noticed here, we've deleted things in different ways. I'm just going to do that again. Just do it by, not by class, but by 3D connectivity, because I think, you see these two kind of bits at the end, they weren't deleted last time. So shift click on that, and I think the other side is already selected, but shift click on that, press enter, there we go, perfect. Also these scatters, if we come to this, the geometry will have changed now, just thought, yeah, so I'm just going to grab this piece at the bottom. So again, click the arrow there, come to the class attribute, and then grab this big piece at the bottom, enter on that, perfect, and then that should scatter there. One thing with these scatters, if we press spacebar on 2 and take a look from the top, you see they're kind of spaced out evenly. For these chunks, I want them to be a bit more random, so I'm going to turn off the relaxed iterations. If you notice they're kind of even there, turn that off and it's more random. And I'm just going to do the same with the other two, and this one as well. Perfect. And then come down to the bottom, that will all fracture again. Turn off these points, spacebar on 1, and then just save that out again. Perfect. Okay, so now let's actually fracture this up further. So we need, I'm going to first of all drop a null actually. So we'll call this a null, capital letters at the beginning, just for convenience when we come to search it again. And then a scatter, actually leave that there, drop a scatter. Okay, that's too many points there. I'm going to turn that off and just do it by density. So this to a bit less, 5. Let's see, we've got 2,162 points. Should be okay. Voronoi fracture down below. Typically a good idea to set everything up here before connecting this up, because it could take a long time. So I'm going to call this bendy. So that will be the name attribute. I know that will overwrite what we've done here, but that's fine. It won't cause any problems. There we go. That'll take a minute or two. There we go. So that's all done. So let's start working on the constraints. So I want RBD constraint properties first of all. So this gives us constraints automatically. All right, and you can see them kind of highlighted there as we're working on them here. Okay, and so the constraints here between these pieces, they will be giving us the effect of metal bending. So we want soft constraints. We want them to be pretty soft, because if we take a look at the fracture, if I come here and look at the name attributes, okay, so we don't have tiny pieces, right? So the bigger the fracture, the bigger the pieces, the more difficult it is for the metal to bend. So you're dependent on how there's a kind of correlation between the size of the pieces and how easy the metal bends, and therefore how stiff or not you need the constraint to be, right? So the bigger if you plan or you don't want your pieces to bend very much, then I suggest start out by keeping your pieces pretty big. Obviously you have less detail there, but if you don't need it, then it's just more simulation time process, sub-steps, constraint iterations that you're adding on top for no reason, right? So I'm going to drop the stiffness down to 5 as I've got these so big, and I'm going to drop, so this is, we've got angular stiffness, which is how the constraint can bend around, can kind of turn, and then the general stiffness will be the position, right? So there's a difference between the two. it's easier for it to bend than it is for it to stretch or compress, right? I do want to enable plasticity. That's good for metal. So when the rest length changes, if it stretches or bends, then it's going to try to hold that new rest length and rest rotation. Okay. Now we want angular plasticity as well as rest length plasticity. So stretching and turning as well. Okay. So the threshold 1 degrees. I want it to work very, as soon as it bends at all, hold that. And then the rate, so how quickly, especially with stretching, I don't want it to be really, really stretchy. That would look weird. So the rate is how quickly and how hard it becomes. I'm going to push these both up to 5, right? So the constraints here, if we take a look at them, they are going into the center of each piece, right? But I want them to be at the, where the pieces join. So we can use a handy node called abd convert constraints. There it is. Okay, connect that up. And we want to convert these to surface points. There we go. So now if we grab a null here, take a look at them now, you can see that it looks like they disappeared, but if we take or maybe not, where are they? There we are. I see my mistake now. I forgot to connect up the proxy geometry here. So in our case, the proxy geometry is the same as the render geometry. Well, it's not going to be the render geometry, but in terms of the RBD flow here, we have the main geometry and then the proxy geometry. And the proxy geometry is normally something that will be simulated on, and this is perfect for simulation. It's like an approximation of the render geometry, but so I'm using the same for both here. Okay, anything coming out of a Voronoi fracture is good for simulation. You don't need to make any special proxy geometry for that. Good, so now we have our constraints. If we visualize them, there we go. That's what we want. Lots of points between each piece, and you can actually see the border of the Voronoi piece there. Okay, so cool. We'll save that and then continue with the rest of the constraints next.